Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for another PlayStation title, and today I'm taking a look at Nobody Wants to Die on the PlayStation 5. Now this was released just a handful of days ago, and it's a game that I have really enjoyed my time with. And what is Nobody Wants to Die, you are asking? Well, essentially this game is a narrative-heavy adventure game, and it borrows from a lot of different genres here. It's very stylish. It's set in the future. It's got a 1930s feel to it, and then it's also got a cyberpunk, a steampunk, and a very Blade Runner inspired aesthetic going through the whole game, and it's really very effective and a very beautiful game to play. However, for those of you that love like really expansive and open and free games, open world games, all that kind of stuff, and you're not really into fairly linear and scripted adventure games, then this might not be something for you. But what you get here, if you're willing to give up 5 or 6 hours of your time, because that's what it'll take to pretty much complete this, is a really complex and interesting story. And it's like I say, it's set in the future, in almost like an alternate world, set in the future with this very old-fashioned steampunk feel to it. And humanity really is, pollution is horrific, and humans now, what they can do is, hence the title, Nobody Wants to Die. And if you've got enough influence, power and money, when you do die, you can transfer your consciousness into another body. And you don't, there are some people in the population that don't really have a choice. They have to donate their bodies and all this kind of stuff if you don't have the right points and credits and so on and so forth. So it's got a little bit of the Sixth Day going on in there as well, the Arnold Schwarzenegger film, where they clone people, whereas, in this one, they transfer their consciousness into somebody else's body. And you play a detective called James. He has been a detective for a long time. He's a veteran, however, he has fallen out of favour with his superiors. But he is reluctantly brought back on board to investigate a crime. And when he gets to the crime scene, he finds that there has been a murder. And he has to investigate that scene, and it unravels a huge plot of corruption. And he's got to kind of figure it all out. Now, when you get to the crime scenes in this game, you kind of investigate. It's almost Arkham style in the way he investigates, the Arkham Batman games. He's got a number of tools that are available to him, this detective, and what essentially you can do is you can scan and analyze the crime scene in order to kind of reconstruct what's happened. So you can kind of use your UV lamp to follow blood splatters and other liquids. You can take photographs of victims. You can use an analysis tool to analyze this, that, and the other. And then you can reconstruct what happened and kind of roll back time and roll forward time to specific places to unlock more clues in order to move forward the investigation. So yeah, this really is like a detective type game, but not as like in depth or engaging as like the Sherlock Holmes games or the Poirot games. They're not as like I say, complex as those games in regards to detective stories. It's really finding a clue, and then it tells you what to do with that clue. It's more, in actual fact, it's got more in common with like the point and click adventures from like Broken Sword and things like that, but done from a first person perspective. You'll find a clue, you'll tell you what to do with it, whether it be scan it, analyze it, whatever. You'll do that, and then you follow on to the next clue, and then it continues on until you've got everything that you need from that scene, and then you kind of move on to the next part of the game. You've got somebody in your ear who's helping you along, and they've got this quite spiky relationship, so the dialogue's quite fun, to say the least, and very adult, very grown up. It's a very mature game. It's not light and jolly by any stretch of the imagination. It actually deals with some pretty heavy subject matters in a lot of ways if you sit and analyze it. But set in this backdrop of this, dystopian future, and it's just very, very stunning game to play and to just gawp at sometimes. There are a number of scenes that you'll start the scene and you just kind of sat gazing out into the city, smoking a cigarette, like having a conversation with yourself, and it's just... The game is very acutely aware of how beautiful it actually looks, and it does absolutely help you along. So, like I say, you've got different things that you can do. Once you've completed a crime scene, you can kind of move on, and there's ways you can kind of put your clues together and try and figure out, who the perpetrator is and how the person died, and all the clues that you've collected, you can kind of make them fit together, sort of thing. But that's about as layered and complex as it gets in regards to kind of figuring out this, that, and the other. And there's a very small amount of dialogue options that when you choose it, because you can choose some dialogue options, it'll kind of say that has kind of affected the game, sort of thing. But I'll be honest, I'm not convinced how it affects the game. It's one of those games where it just feels very scripted in a lot of ways. And for me, it didn't feel like any of the choices that I made had any kind of impact on the game. But I don't know. I mean, I've only played it once, I'm not going to lie. It's a game I probably will revisit again in a few weeks to play it again, and I'll make different choices. But I'm not convinced that they will make a great deal of difference, if I'm being honest here. So as I've said, this is a finely crafted game that's not really going to take you beyond 6 hours. Probably, I think, for those of you that kind of zoom through games like this, I think you could probably get it done in 4.5 hours, something like that. But if you are a completionist, there's if you like to look at every single thing in a crime scene, and that means like picking up pictures and newspapers and books and everything like that, and spinning them around and checking them, and then it's going to take you probably a good couple of hours longer than that to kind of finish it. But I found this whole thing just dripping in atmosphere. I love sci-fi, I love Blade Runner, I love Cyberpunk 2077 and the whole detective noir stuff that it's got going for it, this game. It's kind of ticked a lot of my boxes in regards to just kind of taking me along for the ride here. And because I love movies as well, it kind of feels like you're playing a movie as well. Quite a well-written movie. I mean, the voice acting is of a very, very high standard as well. I mean, and I think this is, unique enough for you guys out there to kind of play it. I mean, we don't often get nicely made, unique games these days, or original games. And this is definitely trying to give us something a little bit different to play and engage in our brains a little bit. But it's also not a challenge to play either. As I've said, it kind of it's cleverly constructed to kind of guide you through the game so that you kind of find the clues that you need. There is a hint button as well if you need it, but I'll be honest, I never needed it in this game. There was always a pretty good idea of what you should be doing next or what clues you should be looking for. Might take you, a minute sometimes to find a clue that you need to find, but I always found them, so I don't think this is what I would describe as a difficult game to play either. So if you like really strong, narrative-heavy graphic adventures, then this is definitely one for you. I thought it was beautifully made, it looked beautiful, it sounded beautiful, ticked a lot of boxes for me, and I really, really enjoyed my time with it. Sometimes you just need a palate cleanser like this, a game like this that comes along that doesn't take up a lot of your time to complete, but it is still very, very memorable to play, and I think it's sometimes that's what we all need. So from my perspective, I'm giving this a really, really solid 8 out of 10. It's not a full price game either, so if you're looking for a game like this Trust me, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's a very, very, very good game. So thank you very much for joining me.